Mistress faked a pregnancy, billionaire believed her and threw out his real pregnant wife. Secrets, betrayal, and the desperate lengths people go to for love or power know no bounds. When Matthew Harper, a self-made millionaire, falls under the spell of a cunning mistress, everything he once cherished stands on the brink of destruction. Emily, his devoted wife, is pregnant with his child, but Matthew's heart has strayed to the calculating charms of another woman. In a whirlwind of jealousy and manipulation, a single lie about pregnancy catapults their world into chaos. No one can guess how far the mistress will go to secure her spot at the top, or how violently their safe, secure lives will unravel. The mansion's bright chandeliers shimmered over tables adorned with white linen and elaborate floral arrangements. Elegant guests sauntered across polished marble floors, their laughter and conversation blending into a sophisticated hum. Matthew Harper, a tall, athletic man with a pronounced jawline and stormy grey eyes, presided over the evening like a king among courtiers. He had worked tirelessly for his fortune, forging Harper Innovations from the ground up. Tonight's charity gala was another jewel in his crown, the place where society's elite mingled and alliances were brokered. At Matthew's side stood Emily, his wife of 5 years, her blonde hair pinned into a simple yet graceful chignon. She was known among friends and acquaintances for her caring heart and keen intelligence. Dressed in a sweeping navy gown, she was modest but radiant, her pregnancy still a carefully guarded secret known only to Matthew, a handful of close friends, and Dr. Muir, their trusted obstetrician. Through the swirl of clinking champagne flutes and hushed conversations, Emily's eyes roamed the crowd. She caught sight of a striking woman with long black hair who wore a fiery red dress that was impossible to ignore. Isabella Rossi, an ambitious lawyer from a well-known firm, she had started working closely with Matthew on an upcoming corporate lawsuit. Emily had no reason to be suspicious, yet something about the way Isabella laughed with Matthew, lightly touching his arm, set off a tingle of apprehension. Emily was not naive. She recognized subtle flirtation when she saw it, but she brushed it aside, reminding herself that Matthew was a proud man who took his vows seriously at least. That was what she believed wholeheartedly then. She was pregnant with his child, and their life together was just beginning a new chapter. However, that fleeting moment at the gala was the first crack in the facade of perfection that surrounded their marriage. Had Emily known how deep that crack would grow, she might have fled the party that very instant. Yet fate, as it so often does, took a much darker turn. The morning after the gala, Emily woke early to tend to her blossoming herb garden, a quiet sanctuary she'd created on the mansion's western terrace. She ran her fingers through the soft leaves of rosemary and thyme, inhaling their comforting fragrances. The sun was just peeking over the horizon, and for a moment everything felt warm and secure. Inside, she found Matthew already seated at the kitchen table, flipping through business reports on his tablet. His face appeared stressed, a slight furrow marking his forehead. Their housekeeper Maria brought coffee and toast. Emily placed a gentle hand on her husband's shoulder. "Late night?" she asked, mustering a playful smile to hide her concern. He offered a tight nod. "Work's piling up. Isabella and I need to finalize a major part of the paperwork for the Henderson case." Emily's heart skipped a beat at the mention of Isabella's name. Why couldn't her mind stop conjuring ominous thoughts about this woman? She forced another smile, reminding herself that Matthew's job often required him to collaborate with strong personalities. "How's the baby?" he asked, placing his hand over her abdomen with a fleeting look of warmth. Though her belly was still small, he seemed to relish the proof of his impending fatherhood. "We're both fine," Emily replied, feeling reassured that fatherhood was still significant to him. "I have another appointment with Dr. Muir next week. Maybe you can come." Matthew's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He retracted his hand, glanced at the screen, and then stood. "Sorry, honey, I have to take this. Work never ends." As he walked away, Emily's heart wrenched. He barely finished his coffee. She couldn't ignore how quickly his warmth dissolved whenever Isabella's name was mentioned or texted. That was the second hint that something was off. In the weeks that followed, Emily's suspicions grew. Matthew came home late more often, carried out hushed phone calls in the study, and disappeared for meetings at odd hours. He chalked it all up to the Henderson case, emphasizing that corporate lawsuits demanded meticulous attention. Emily tried to believe him, but each passing day chipped away at her confidence. One Friday night, Emily decided to confront her uneasy feelings by visiting Matthew at his office unannounced. She brought dinner from his favorite Italian place, hoping a spontaneous romantic gesture might rekindle their closeness. When she arrived at Harper Innovations, the lights on the entire floor were on, reflecting the hustle of a looming court date. Emily navigated the labyrinth of cubicles and glass-partitioned offices until she found Matthew's corner suite. The blinds were closed, but she could see two silhouettes, one masculine, one feminine. A pang of dread ripped through her chest. She opened the door, dinner bag in hand, trying to maintain her composure. Isabella leaned against Matthew's desk, her red pumps just visible beneath a tight pencil skirt. The space buzzed with tension. Upon seeing Emily, Isabella flashed a seemingly innocent smile. Matthew quickly rose, his eyes darting from Emily to Isabella. "What a surprise," he said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow. "Everything okay?" "I brought you dinner," Emily said, attempting to sound light-hearted. A flicker of annoyance crossed Isabella's face so quickly, Emily almost missed it. Matthew turned to Isabella. "Let's call it a night. We can finalize the last points tomorrow." Isabella collected her files, glancing at Emily. "Yes, tomorrow. Good night, Mrs. Harper." Her tone was cordial, but her eyes carried something else, challenge, or worse, triumph. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that Isabella had already claimed a piece of Matthew's heart. Emily pretended not to notice and handed Matthew the dinner container. She tried to engage him in conversation, but he was visibly distracted. Hours later, in their quiet bedroom, she cuddled into his arms, searching for a whisper of the closeness they once shared. But a creeping suspicion took root instead. Isabella was no ordinary colleague. Isabella was a shark circling the waters, and Emily feared she was about to be devoured. Emily's pregnancy progressed. While she had expected to celebrate each milestone with Matthew, her excitement dimmed whenever he mentioned Isabella. Doctor's appointments he once eagerly accompanied her to now held less priority. Each time, an excuse emerged, a deposition, a meeting, an urgent phone call. Emily found herself alone in the waiting room more often than not, flipping through outdated magazines filled with pictures of smiling babies and glowing parents. She tried to mask her growing loneliness with forced optimism, telling herself the Henderson case was nearly over, but the case never seemed to end. 3 months into Emily's pregnancy, a whisper ran rampant among the corporate staff. Isabella Rossi was pregnant. The rumor started in the break room, then spread among associates at lunch, and even reached the ears of the cleaning staff who worked late nights. Before long, people were talking about it in hushed tones behind half-closed doors. Matthew denied he knew anything about it whenever his anxious executives tried to confirm the rumor. He claimed not to pry into employees' personal lives. But with the rumor swirling, Emily's already heightened insecurities erupted into full-blown panic. Was the father actually Matthew? Could this be the reason he was so detached? She confronted him, tears in her eyes. "They say Isabella is pregnant, Matthew. Please tell me it's not yours." Matthew, standing in their spacious living room, stared at his wife as though seeing her for the first time. Agitation bristled under his skin. "Don't be ridiculous, Emily." She never mentioned anything to me. People gossip, they make up stories. Emily searched his gaze for comfort. But if it's not a story? He embraced her gently, stroking her hair. I love you. Whatever you're hearing is baseless. Trust me. But that night, long after Emily fell asleep, Matthew sat awake on the edge of the bed, phone in hand. The screen illuminated the worry carved across his face. On his phone was a text message thread with Isabella Rossi. Isabella, we need to talk. I have to see you tomorrow. Matthew, is this about the rumor? Isabella, yes, it's bigger than you think. The next morning, Matthew arranged a meeting with Isabella under the pretense of reviewing documents. He chose an upscale cafe on the outskirts of the city, hoping they wouldn't be recognized. When he arrived, Isabella was already there, sipping an Americano. Her black hair was neatly tied back, accentuating her angular features. She looked poised and unflinching, the same way she appeared in court. Matthew sat opposite her, cutting straight to the chase. Is the rumor true? She slowly set down her coffee cup, taking a measured breath. I'm pregnant, Matthew. The blood drained from his face. Is it mine? He asked, his voice shaking. Isabella looked offended. How can you even ask that? He leaned forward, voice lowered. Stop playing games. We were involved. But this changes everything. Why didn't you tell me before it started circulating at the office? Isabella's lips trembled in a crafted display of hurt. I only found out recently. I wanted to be sure. What was I supposed to do? Run to you immediately without proof? I needed time. Matthew's mind raced. In truth, he and Isabella had given in to a moment of weakness, maybe more than once amid the high stakes and long hours of the Henderson case. The guilt weighed heavily on him, but he never imagined it would come to this. His wife, Emily, was pregnant with his child, and here he was, faced with a second pregnancy he had never wanted, from a woman he barely knew outside the courtroom. He thought of Emily's gentle smile and how she cried out in excitement when she heard their baby's heartbeat for the first time. Now he was entangled in a labyrinth of deceit. What are we going to do? He asked, his tone laden with regret. Isabella offered an almost imperceptible shrug. I can't make a decision alone, but I refuse to be shoved aside. If you're the father, you have responsibilities. Matthew closed his eyes. The weight of his betrayal loomed like a thundercloud about to burst. Isabella, sensing his turmoil, reached for his hand. I'm not asking for much. I just don't want to be alone. For a moment, he believed her, desperate for a way out that harmed no one. But such a path no longer existed. Matthew exhaled slowly. Let me think. Isabella squeezed his hand before departing, leaving the faint scent of her perfume as a reminder that she was anything but a passing fling. He slumped in his seat, feeling trapped in a life he no longer controlled. Emily, unaware of Matthew's secret meeting, spent the morning browsing a local bookstore to distract herself from her gnawing sense of dread. Despite her turmoil, she'd felt the baby move for the first time earlier that week. She tried to remain positive for their future child. On her way home, she stopped by Dr. Muir's office to pick up additional prenatal vitamins. A chance encounter in the waiting room ignited a whirlwind of revelations. A nurse approached Emily with a kind smile. Oh, Mrs. Harper, Doctor. Muir just got your blood work back. Everything looks wonderful. If you wait a moment, he'd like to speak with you about an update. Emily took a seat, tapping her feet nervously. 5 minutes later, Dr. Muir ushered her into his private office. A tall, balding man in his 50s, his warm demeanor had always put Emily at ease. Emily, the new results look great. Your iron levels are back up, Doctor, Muir said, scanning her chart. Emily brightened with relief. Thank you, Doctor. That's good to hear. His brow furrowed slightly. Are you under any extra stress? Your blood pressure was a bit elevated last time. Pregnancy and stress aren't a good mix. Emily hesitated, considering whether to confide in Dr. Muir about her growing fears. I've been worried about my husband's business problems, she offered vaguely. Dr. Muir smiled kindly. Try not to let the external world overshadow this time for you. Stress can affect the baby. Lean on your support system. She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Her support system was supposed to be Matthew, but day by day, the distance between them felt insurmountable. Before leaving, Emily glanced at Dr. Muir's desk, where a stack of medical files lay. She noticed a familiar name labeled across one folder, Isabella Rossi. Her heartbeat hammered in her chest. The same woman, rumored to be pregnant, was Dr. Muir's patient. That confirmed it. Isabella was expecting, and Dr. Muir was the same obstetrician she had been seeing herself. Emily's eyes widened as a wave of nausea and betrayal washed over her. She excused herself quickly and fled the office. By the time she got home, her thoughts were in disarray. How long had this been going on? Why did Matthew lie so effortlessly? She shivered, standing in the foyer of their mansion, not knowing which was worse, the possibility that Matthew had fathered Isabella's child, or the horrifying notion that he was intentionally overlooking Emily's pregnancy for a woman who had ensnared him with a web of lies. That evening, after pacing the living room for hours, Emily decided she could no longer bear the secrets. When Matthew finally returned from work, exhausted and tense, Emily stood in front of him, hands trembling. "You need to tell me the truth." He studied her carefully, his expression guarded. "About what? Is Isabella pregnant with your child?" It felt as if a dagger had been plunged into the heart of their marriage. Matthew's eyes flickered with guilt. Instead of denying it outright, he hung his head. "She claims she is." A flash of anguish tore through Emily. Tears welled in her eyes. "Claims? So you're not sure?" He shook his head. "I haven't seen any proof, any sonograms, any test results. She just told me. That's all. I'm going to verify." "Verify?" Emily repeated in disbelief, rage and heartbreak swirling within her. "What do you mean, verify? Are you planning to go to doctor's appointments with her? Get a paternity test." He strode across the room, raking a hand through his hair. "I need to figure out if she's telling the truth." This came out of nowhere. Emily's voice cracked. "What about our child, Matthew? The one growing inside me right now? Have you forgotten?" His silence spoke volumes. The betrayal was beyond anything Emily could have imagined. Desperation coiled in her gut. She needed him to look at her, to reassure her that their family came first. But instead, he avoided her gaze. The conversation ended with him storming off to the bedroom, muttering that he needed time to think. The echo of his footsteps along the marble floor filled the empty spaces of Emily's heart with dread. She sank into the sofa, tears slipping down her cheeks. She felt consumed by uncertainty. Was her baby the only child he truly wanted, or was he now bound to another woman's unborn child, if there was one? Days turned into weeks, and as Emily's belly began to show, Matthew drifted further away. He claimed he needed to handle the situation with Isabella, but every time Emily tried to talk to him, he dismissed her with clipped responses. Tormented by her husband's emotional distance, Emily decided to meet Isabella herself. She arranged an encounter at a boutique cafe in the heart of the city. Isabella arrived wearing a form-fitting black dress that revealed no obvious sign of pregnancy. Her hair was tied in a sleek bun, and a cold smile curved her lips when she saw Emily waiting nervously at an outside table. "Mistress Harper," Isabella said, taking a seat. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" Emily pressed her trembling hands in her lap. "I want the truth about you and my husband." Isabella let out a soft, mocking laugh. "You really want all the details?" Emily took a deep breath. "I just want to know if you're truly pregnant." Isabella leaned forward, her voice dripping with condescension. "He is the father, Emily. I'm sure you already suspect that." Emily's stomach clenched, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "You're lying. You just want Matthew's money. You saw an opportunity." "Oh, I can assure you I'm not lying," Isabella countered, lifting her chin defiantly. "But even if I wasn't, do you think Matthew would side with you, a nagging, insecure wife, over me?" Emily's head spun. Isabella's confidence hammered at her final vestiges of hope. She might have stormed away, but Isabella wasn't finished. She reached into her handbag, pulled out a small envelope, and slid it across the table. "It's a copy of a lab test. You can read it if you like. But if you continue meddling in our relationship, you'll regret it." Isabella rose, smoothing her dress. As she left, Emily's shaking hands fumbled to open the envelope. Inside, she found what appeared to be a blood test result, stating Isabella's pregnancy was at 8 weeks, a timeline that coincided with the peak of the Henderson case, when Matthew and Isabella were spending late nights together. Emily bolted from the cafe, tears streaming down her face. She felt the entire weight of her child pressing on her from within, as if even the baby were in distress. She could barely breathe. Isabella was pregnant, and if the test was real, Matthew might be the father. The heartbreak was unbearable, and she had no clue how deep this betrayal would go. Emily confronted Matthew that evening with the test result, brandishing it like an accusation. She's claiming she's 8 weeks pregnant. The dates line up, don't they? Matthew snatched the paper from her grasp, scanning it with mounting dread. "This could be fabricated," he muttered, but Emily sensed the uncertainty in his voice. Tears stained her cheeks. Why would she go to such lengths if it's not real? If you had nothing to do with her, she wouldn't fixate on you like this. His silence felt like a death knell to their marriage. Then he sighed, setting the test result on a marble countertop. "I'm seeing her doctor with her in a few days to confirm everything." Isabella goes to Dr. Muir, the same doctor I do, Emily said, her voice trembling. "Are you going to stand next to her in the same office where I've waited for you?" He grimaced. "Yes. It's the only way to figure out the truth. And once we know, we can make a decision." "We?" she repeated bitterly. "You mean you and Isabella?" He swallowed. "Emily, you're my wife. Don't twist my words. I'm doing this for our sake too." But his words rang hollow. Emily knew that in the tangled web Isabella had spun, the truth would be secondary to the illusions of control. If Matthew confirmed her pregnancy, Emily feared he would do the unthinkable, put his mistress's supposed child above their own. The tension tightened like a vise around her chest. The illusions of a perfect life had shattered, replaced by a reality so cruel she could hardly stand. 2 days later, Emily cradled her swelling abdomen as she sat in the living room, listening to the thunder of an approaching storm outside. Matthew had left that morning for Isabella's doctor's appointment. They'd had a huge argument the night before, culminating in a stony silence that lingered into dawn. The clock ticked ominously, each passing minute, intensifying her dread. Finally, she heard the metallic screech of the mansion's front gates. Moments later, Matthew burst in, hair drenched from the rain, an unreadable expression on his face. "Well?" she demanded, voice strained. He shook his head like a man condemned. "She's pregnant." When Emily's eyes widened, he added, "There's a heartbeat. About 9 weeks now," Dr. Muir confirmed it. Emily nearly collapsed. Her knees gave out and she slumped onto a nearby armchair. Her heart hammered in her chest. "And the baby is yours?" Matthew hesitated. "We don't know. It's likely. She wants a paternity test once the baby is viable enough for a non-invasive test. Until then, I have to provide for her. She doesn't want to consider alternatives." Emily found it hard to breathe. "Provide how? Financially? Emotionally? You're going to stand by her side while ignoring me? Ignoring your own child?" Matthew reached for her, but she recoiled. "It's not like that," he said, though his tone held little conviction. "I just can't abandon her if the child is mine." Emily shut her eyes. What about our child, your real child, the one you actually planned? He fell silent for a moment that stretched unbearably. Then, jaw set, he spoke with forced resolve. This isn't easy for me either, but Isabella's pregnancy is a fact now. We can't just pretend it away. Emily's voice wavered with agony. I won't share my husband with another woman and another baby. Anger flared in Matthew's eyes. Don't be selfish, Emily. This is about the child. Do you think I want this? Do you think I wanted to see you in pain? His frustration boiled over, fueled by guilt and confusion. She gasped at his words. Selfish? You're calling me selfish for not wanting to raise your mistress's baby alongside my own? She turned away, hugging herself protectively. The storm battered the windows, echoing the tempest raging inside their home. That night, Matthew slept in one of the guest rooms for the first time since they'd been married. The corridors of the mansion felt emptier than ever. Emily lay awake, tears glistening in the darkness. Outside, the storm howled, and she couldn't help feeling that it was a harbinger of worse things yet to come. Despite the heartbreak, Emily resolved to fight for her marriage. She arranged a couples counseling session with a renowned therapist, Dr. Natasha Green. She hoped they could salvage whatever remained of their relationship before their baby arrived. At the session, Dr. Green asked pointed questions about trust, love, and forgiveness. Emily poured out her anguish over Isabella's alleged pregnancy and how Matthew's betrayal made her feel worthless and abandoned. Matthew sat on the opposite couch, shoulders hunched, occasionally clenching and unclenching his fists. It's complicated, he finally said, staring at the floor. I never meant to hurt Emily, but I can't turn my back on a child that might be mine. Emily wanted to scream that their own child was his, without any question, but the words caught in her throat. The therapist tried to guide them toward empathy and understanding, but the damage ran deep. The session ended with Dr. Green advising them to work on open communication. Secrets corrode relationships, she told them. A final note of caution. Decide what you both really want, and if you're willing to fight for it. On the drive home, the silence was suffocating. Emily pressed her hand against her belly, feeling a gentle movement beneath. She wanted to turn to Matthew, to plead for him to see the miracle they were creating together. But his gaze was distant, fixed on some horizon she couldn't see. Days bled into a torturous routine. Emily spent her time preparing the nursery, choosing neutral colors. Friends began to ask awkward questions about why Matthew rarely appeared. Rumors circulated among the city's high society that the millionaire's marriage was on rocky ground. Emily's mother, Catherine Bennett, noticed the shift and visited for moral support, but Emily couldn't summon the courage to tell her mother the full truth. Meanwhile, Isabella continued to tighten her hold on Matthew. She showed up at his office unannounced, discussing baby names in front of the staff. She called him late at night with cravings, insisting he bring her specific foods or supplements. Each time, Matthew rushed off, leaving Emily alone in their sprawling mansion. One evening, Emily found herself rummaging through old photo albums. Pictures of their early days, as a couple dancing on the beach at sunset, celebrating holidays with family, forging a bond that once felt invincible. Now, those memories felt like a cruel joke. She was losing him to a woman who had coiled her manipulative fingers around his life. Matthew returned past midnight. Emily stood in the foyer, arms crossed. This has to stop. She's controlling you. He set his briefcase down with a thud. She called me. She was dizzy. She's pregnant, Emily. I can't just ignore her if she needs help. Matthew, I'm pregnant too, your wife. Why is her comfort more important than mine? His face hardened. Stop making this a competition. I'm doing my best to be fair. She gaped at him, tears threatening to spill. Fair to whom? Certainly not to me. And certainly not to our child. This is tearing me apart. I can't talk about this anymore, he muttered, brushing past her. As she watched him ascend the grand staircase, Emily felt something snap inside her. A swirling vortex of pain and fury consumed her, and she sensed she was on the brink of a decision that would redefine the rest of her life. Desperate for answers, Emily enlisted the help of a private investigator named Javier Martin, a discreet, resourceful man recommended by one of her closest friends, Claire Delacroix. Emily wanted to confirm the authenticity of Isabella's pregnancy. Something about Isabella's unwavering confidence kept gnawing at her. It all seemed too convenient. When Javier arrived, Emily felt guilty, as if she were betraying Matthew, but she told herself she needed the truth. Javier took notes, scratched his neatly trimmed beard, and nodded sympathetically. "I'll see what I can find, but it may take time." He set about collecting evidence, visiting the medical lab listed on Isabella's test. Javier's initial findings were inconclusive. Isabella had indeed visited Dr. Muir's office, and there was an official record of a pregnancy. But private detective work sometimes required creative methods. Javier pulled strings to examine security footage from the lab. Although confidentiality laws prevented any direct access to medical details, the cameras might reveal something amiss. While Javier dug deeper, Emily waited, her nerves stretched thin. She prayed for a glimmer of hope, some proof that Isabella was orchestrating an elaborate deception. A week later, Javier called Emily to arrange a meeting at a secluded restaurant far from the city centre. Emily hurried there, heart pounding. They settled into a quiet corner booth, and Javier handed her a small USB drive. "You need to see this," he said grimly. "I pulled security footage from a day Isabella visited that lab." Emily's shaking fingers plugged the USB into her laptop. The footage showed Isabella stepping into a consultation room. 10 minutes later, she emerged, meeting a man in the hallway. Javier zoomed in, revealing an exchange of envelopes. The man wore a lab coat, presumably a technician. Isabella discreetly slipped him a wad of cash. Emily's pulse raced. "What does this mean?" Javier's jaw clenched. "It suggests she may have bribed someone to alter or produce fraudulent test results, but we still have Dr. Muir's confirmation. We need to figure out how that ties together." Emily's hopes soared despite the uncertain evidence, but Dr. Muir said he saw a heartbeat. "You can't fake that so easily." Javier nodded. "Indeed. There are advanced methods, like forging ultrasound videos, but Dr. Muir is reputable. We need to confirm if the ultrasound he saw was genuinely Isabella's." Emily bit her lip. "So there's a possibility her entire pregnancy is staged. That's what I'm trying to uncover," Javier said. "Perhaps she's found a way to pass off another woman's ultrasound as her own. But let's not jump to conclusions yet." Emily's stomach churned, torn between hope and horror. If Isabella was lying, it meant her marriage might still be salvaged. But if Isabella's deception was this elaborate, how far would she go to secure her grip on Matthew? Buoyed by Javier's discoveries, Emily mustered the courage to confront Matthew, hoping the new evidence would finally break Isabella's hold. She asked him to come home early one evening, saying she had important news. He arrived, tension rippling between them. "What is it?" Emily swallowed her fear. "I hired a private investigator, and we have surveillance footage of Isabella paying a lab technician. She might be faking her results, Matthew. She's not really pregnant, at least, not with your child." Matthew's face reddened, anger and confusion battling within him. "A private investigator? You've been spying on her?" "I did it because you wouldn't believe me otherwise," Emily pressed on. "There's reason to think her pregnancy is a scam." He ran a hand through his hair, face contorting with conflicting emotions. But Dr. Muir saw the heartbeat. "How can she fake that?" Emily placed a trembling hand on his arm. "We don't know yet. Maybe she used someone else's ultrasound. There's footage of a bribe. Doesn't that make you question anything?" For a moment, hope flickered in Matthew's eyes. You really think this could all be a lie?" Emily nodded, tears threatening to fall. "Please, Matthew, Don't throw everything away for a woman who might be conning you. He let out a shaky breath, seeming on the brink of uncertainty. Then his phone buzzed. Isabella's name flashed on the screen. Emily's heart sank as Matthew answered. "What's wrong?" he asked, tension lining his brow. Seconds later, his face twisted with alarm. "I'll be right there." He hung up, turning to Emily in a hurry. "She said she's in pain. She's spotting. She's going to the emergency room." Emily's voice trembled with desperation. "Matthew, don't go. She's lying. Don't let her manipulate you again." He grabbed his coat, face set in an agonized frown. "I can't risk it. If she loses the baby and it's mine, I can't live with that." Emily stood rooted to the floor, sobbing as he left. Doubt flooded her. What if Isabella's claims were real? Would Emily be the monster who let a child die because of her jealousy? But the sight of him rushing off to Isabella's side shattered what remained of Emily's fragile peace. The night Matthew went to Isabella, he never returned. Emily called repeatedly, left messages, but each time she was sent to voicemail. The next morning, he walked in, eyes bloodshot, looking like he had aged 10 years in a single night. "She was bleeding heavily," he said. "The doctors managed to stabilize her. The baby's still okay. She's on bed rest for the next few weeks." Emily felt a stab of guilt she couldn't explain. "So it's true. The baby's real." "It sure looked that way," he said, slumping onto a chair. Emily wanted to retort that Isabella could have staged the entire emergency, but the words stuck. She stood silently, arms folded over her growing belly. She hoped he would realize what was happening, but the possibility of a real crisis overshadowed any logic. Suddenly, his anger flared. "I can't believe you stooped so low as to hire a private investigator. Isabella is under immense stress, and you're adding to it by accusing her of lying. You could cause a miscarriage with all this drama." Emily's mouth hung open in shock. "I did it because I love you, because I know something isn't right." He rose, towering over her, fury radiating from every muscle. "No, you did it because you're jealous and paranoid. I can't deal with you constantly sabotaging this situation. If Isabella's baby is mine, I have to be there for her." The final blow landed with chilling certainty. "I want you out of this house until you can accept reality." Tears blurred Emily's vision. "What? You're throwing me out? Go stay with your mother or a friend. I can't handle your manipulative behavior anymore. You've crossed the line." The cruelty in his tone cut deeper than any betrayal. Emily felt the weight of her unborn child, a living testament to the life they had once planned together. She packed a suitcase with shaking hands, the gravity of his decision slamming into her like a physical force. He was choosing Isabella, even if subconsciously, over their marriage, over their own unborn child. As she stepped into the drizzling rain, tears mingling with the cold droplets on her cheeks, the mansion doors slammed shut behind her. She stood on the grand steps, suitcase in hand, her future uncertain. The man she loved had turned his back on her for a woman who might be spinning a monstrous lie. She had nowhere to go but forward, carrying both heartbreak and the hope for her unborn child. Emily found refuge at her mother Catherine's modest home. Catherine was appalled by Matthew's actions, but she sensed Emily's torment ran deeper than simple betrayal. She gave her daughter space, offering unconditional love and a home-cooked meal. In the ensuing days, Emily hit her lowest point. She couldn't sleep, her mind plagued by images of Matthew tending to Isabella's every whim. Fear gnawed at her that the stress might hurt her baby. She sank into despondency, barely able to summon the energy to eat or change clothes. It was her friend Claire Delacroix who delivered a swift intervention. Visiting Emily one afternoon, Claire found her lying listlessly on a bed. Without hesitation, Claire threw open the curtains, letting in bright sunlight that stung Emily's eyes. You need to fight, Emily, Claire said sternly. You are pregnant with his child. Don't give up. Emily blinked, slowly sitting up. He won't even talk to me. I have no idea what's going on with him. Claire placed a supportive hand on Emily's back. Then make him talk to you, or use the resources at your disposal. You found a lead with Javier. Press on. Emily let out a quivering sigh. I'm tired, Claire. Claire squeezed her shoulder. I know, but if you don't stand up for yourself and your baby, who will? Don't let that conniving woman destroy your family. Expose her if she's lying. Renewed determination simmered beneath Emily's heartbreak. She nodded, wiping away her tears. She might have been thrown out of her own home, but she still had her resolve, and she still had Javier's evidence. Before she could find peace, she needed the truth to come to light, once and for all. With her newfound determination, Emily called Javier, who had continued digging into Isabella's background. They met at a park bench, the autumn leaves swirling around them like confetti. Javier wore a triumphant smile. I've got something huge, he declared. I've confirmed that Isabella was never pregnant to begin with. She did bribe the technician at the lab to produce false test results. But the real kicker is this. Dr. Muir never actually performed the ultrasound on her. She showed him a DVD that she claimed came from a different clinic. Emily's heart leapt, but Dr. Muir told Matthew he saw the baby's heartbeat. Javier shook his head. He saw a recorded ultrasound that Isabella brought in. She never let him perform an in-office ultrasound on her directly. She claimed she had it done by a specialist. He only gave a confirmation based on that DVD and some blood tests from the bribed lab. She manipulated the entire system. Stunned, Emily realized the cunning lengths Isabella had gone to. What about the hospital where Matthew said she was treated for spotting? I checked the hospital records, Javier said, rifling through a folder. Isabella did check in. She claimed a threatened miscarriage, but the hospital staff found no sign of pregnancy. She left before they could run a conclusive test. She must have told Matthew a different story. Emily felt equal parts rage and relief. Thank God. Finally proof. She's a fraud. Javier handed over the folder. Use this carefully. It's solid evidence. Clutching the folder, Emily felt a surge of strength. Isabella had orchestrated a masterful lie to steal her husband. Now, Emily had the means to reveal the truth. The next step was confronting Matthew or the public so that Isabella's charade would crumble. Emily decided to make her move at Matthew's office, where rumors of Isabella's pregnancy had taken root. She arrived unannounced, folder in hand, determined to end the lies once and for all. The receptionist tried to stop her, but Emily marched past with unwavering resolve. She found Matthew in a conference room surrounded by his legal team, including Isabella. Their conversation died abruptly as Emily entered. Gasps rippled around the table. Emily, Matthew muttered, eyes flicking to Isabella, who looked momentarily startled before regaining her composure. Emily glared at Isabella, then addressed Matthew in a clear, unwavering voice. I have proof that Isabella has been deceiving you. She's not pregnant. A collective hush fell. Isabella's face contorted with mock indignation. You're insane. Everyone knows I've had complications, but the baby is fine. Emily thrust Javier's folder across the table. Hospital records, security footage from the lab, written statements. You bribed a lab technician for false test results, then showed Dr. Muir someone else's ultrasound footage. At the hospital, you refused tests and left before they could confirm anything. Matthew's face whitened as he scanned the documents. His jaw twitched. He turned to Isabella. Is this true? Isabella tried to play the victim, tears forming in her eyes. Those records are fabricated. She's desperate, doing anything to discredit me. Emily pressed on. You want more proof? I have statements from Dr. Muir clarifying that you never let him do an in-office scan. You showed him a pre-recorded ultrasound, citing a specialist who doesn't exist. Shall I call him here to explain personally? Fury flared in Isabella's eyes, her facade fracturing. You little, Matthew rose, voice taut. Enough, Isabella, sit down. She hesitated. Matthew's entire legal team watched, tension humming. He leveled a searing glare at her. I want the truth. Now. Isabella's tears ceased instantly. She stood, tossing her hair back, a sneer twisting her lips. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I faked it. Because I knew if I didn't, you'd stay with your stupid, simpering wife. I was tired of being second, tired of waiting for you to leave her, so I made you believe you had no choice but to be with me. Matthew's chest heaved with betrayal and rage. You lied about everything. You made me throw away my marriage, Isabella scoffed. You were so easy to manipulate, running to my side at every manufactured crisis. You didn't even question it. Don't blame me entirely. Your own ego made you gullible. Matthew's face reddened. Get out. Isabella let out a shrill laugh, gathering her purse. This isn't the last you'll see of me. My law firm might be very interested in how you've conducted yourself should I mention corporate harassment. She glared at Emily. And you, princess, enjoy your happily ever after. If your husband can be seduced once, it can happen again. With that, Isabella stormed out. Silence loomed. Emily's heart pounded. The entire legal team hurriedly excused themselves, leaving Matthew and Emily standing in the wreckage of his professional domain. When they were alone, Matthew's shoulders slumped, haunted remorse etched across his features. Emily, I am so sorry. Tears welled in her eyes. You threw me out. You chose her over me and our child. He tried to approach, but she stepped back, protective hand over her belly. I was a fool, he whispered. I should have trusted you. Emily closed her eyes, recalling the moment he forced her out into the rain. Her heartbreak still felt raw and fresh. You nearly destroyed me, Matthew. You believed a woman who had every motive to lie. And you called me manipulative. He swallowed hard, tears brimming in his own eyes. It was a mistake, one I'll regret for the rest of my life. I know an apology isn't enough. Emily shook with a tumult of emotions, relief, anger, love, resentment. Finally, she let out a ragged sigh. I need time. We can't just pretend none of this happened. You believed her over me, over your own unborn baby. Matthew nodded solemnly. I'll do anything to make it right. I love you and our child. Please, come back. I'll prove it every day. Emily's gaze flickered with uncertainty. You'll have to, because I'm not ready to forgive you yet. He lowered his head, tears slipping down his cheeks. I understand. In that moment, Emily realized that while the truth had been exposed, the damage to their marriage was immeasurable. They stood at the brink of a precipice. Either they rebuilt from the ashes, or they let the broken pieces remain scattered forever. The decision would shape the rest of their lives and the life of the child soon to enter the world. In the weeks that followed, Emily agreed to move back into the mansion under strict conditions. Matthew had to attend therapy, both individually and with her. He had to provide space for her to heal, and he had to publicly clear her name. During a gathering of close friends and family, he made a heartfelt apology, explaining that he had been deceived by a woman who faked her pregnancy. He admitted he had wronged Emily, acknowledging how his betrayal had nearly cost him the love of his life. News of Isabella's fraud circulated swiftly through the city's elite circles. She resigned from her law firm amid scandal, threatening lawsuits, but none gained traction once Emily's evidence came to light. The last they heard, Isabella disappeared from town, leaving a trail of unpaid debts. Therapy sessions with Dr. Green revealed the cracks in Matthew's emotional armor. He had always harbored insecurities about fully deserving Emily's love and about becoming a father. Isabella's cunning manipulation preyed on those doubts, creating a wedge that nearly destroyed his marriage. With each session, they confronted their pain, acknowledging the baby growing inside Emily needed a stable environment. Through tears, confessions, and countless apologies, Emily saw glimmers of the man she fell in love with. He became more attentive, scheduling doctor's appointments with her, remodeling the nursery himself, and reading every book on fatherhood he could find. Slowly, Emily began to soften, though she could never fully erase the scars. She learned that healing was a process, one that demanded acceptance of past wounds and an unwavering resolve to move forward with caution. 8 months into her pregnancy, Emily woke one morning to the gentle light of dawn streaming through the curtains. She felt a sharp twist in her abdomen, a contraction. Matthew, who slept lightly these days, bolted upright. Sensing the urgency, they drove to the hospital, their hearts pounding. In a rush of doctors and nurses, Emily was admitted to the maternity ward. As contractions became more intense, she clung to Matthew's hand. He murmured reassurances, stroking her hair, tears glistening in his eyes. This was the child they had dreamed of before Isabella's deception tore them apart. Labor was long and grueling. Hours later, a piercing cry heralded the arrival of their daughter, Lillian Harper. She had Emily's delicate features and Matthew's steely grey eyes. Overcome with joy and exhaustion, Emily held their newborn in her arms. Matthew gazed at them both as if witnessing a miracle. Tears streamed down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Emily, thank you." In that moment, the hospital room glowed with a sense of renewal. Although they had endured a darkness that nearly destroyed them, the birth of Lillian symbolized a fresh start. Emily saw the love in Matthew's eyes, hope budding anew. Leaving the hospital with Lillian in their arms, Emily and Matthew returned to a house that felt both familiar and foreign. The nursery was painted in soft pastels, a rocking chair set by a bay window overlooking the garden. Emily cradled Lillian in that chair, sunlight dancing on the baby's cheeks. Sometimes she would cry silently, thinking of how close she had come to losing this life of promise. Matthew, determined to mend their fractured trust, turned down unnecessary work trips and refused late-night meetings unless absolutely unavoidable. He hired additional staff to handle business tasks, determined to be an active father, not a distant provider. He apologized daily, in big and small ways, making her breakfast, leaving love notes, or sneaking into the nursery at midnight just to watch Emily and Lillian sleep. Emily, for her part, wrestled with lingering doubts. She asked Dr. Green how she could ever trust him fully again. Dr. Green's advice was simple: time, transparency, and accountability. Gradually, Emily let Matthew back into her heart. She noticed the sincerity in his actions, the unwavering commitment he showed to being a better husband and father. Months passed. Lillian blossomed, gurgling and smiling, bringing laughter into a home once filled with tears. Emily embraced motherhood wholeheartedly, while Matthew discovered a joy he never knew he was capable of. Their relationship, while deeply scarred, began to show signs of real healing. Occasionally, a rumor about Isabella would surface, whispered among business associates who heard she had relocated to another city. Each rumor stirred painful memories, but Emily found that time had dulled the sharp edges of betrayal. She now had a beautiful daughter and a marriage that, while imperfect, had grown stronger in honesty. Over family dinners, Emily and Matthew opened up about their hopes for the future. They spoke of giving Lillian siblings one day, perhaps adopting a child in need. They dreamed of building philanthropic branches of Harper Innovation scholarships, medical research funding, and youth mentorship programs. Both had learned how precious trust and integrity were. On Lillian's first birthday, surrounded by loved ones, Emily observed Matthew from across the garden, holding their daughter aloft. Lillian giggled under colourful balloons. Emily's chest tightened with a mixture of gratitude and lingering sadness. Though they had found a measure of peace, nothing would erase the ordeal they had endured. In a quiet moment, Matthew approached Emily, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Thank you for giving me another chance," he whispered, eyes brimming with emotion. Emily rested her head on his shoulder, watching Lillian chew on a soft toy. "We have to cherish what we have. None of us are guaranteed a second chance." Matthew nodded, smiling down at her. "I'm not going to waste mine." In the aftermath of the nightmare sparked by Isabella's lies, Matthew and Emily learned the harsh cost of betrayal and the equally powerful gift of forgiveness. Their renewed union was not built on innocence, but on the tempered steel of adversity. They had survived a crucible of deceit, heartbreak, and near destruction. For Emily, the ordeal taught her that love could be tested in unimaginable ways, and sometimes you must fight fiercely, even when you feel defeated, to protect those you love. For Matthew, it was a sobering lesson about the ease with which weakness and ego could cloud one's judgment. He vowed never again to allow temptation or insecurity to undermine his most precious bonds. Life moved forward. Lillian grew, giggling through her first words, tottering on chubby legs as she learned to walk. Each day felt like an affirmation. They had been given a second chance to be a family, and they would honor that by living with greater compassion, honesty, and loyalty. Thank you for joining us on this journey filled with deception, heartbreak, and redemption. In the face of betrayal, Emily fought for the truth, exposing a ruthless mistress who nearly tore her marriage apart. Through courage and perseverance, she and Matthew uncovered the lie that threatened to destroy everything, only to emerge stronger and more committed to each other and their precious daughter, Lillian. Their story shows us that even in our darkest moments, the truth has a way of shining through. It's a testament to the indomitable power of love, the necessity of trust, and the hope that blossoms from second chances. If you found yourself moved or inspired by their struggle and ultimate triumph, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. By doing so, you ensure more stories of resilience and transformation reach those who need them most. Thank you for watching, and until next time.